All right, it's Carson. And it's not just any Carson, it's late night Carson. I often spend a lot of time at night coding. Sometimes you might catch me reading, worshiping, or just staying up too late and probably looking at something I probably shouldn't be. Not necessarily in in a bad sense, but rabbit holes, conspiracies, X. Those are my trap doors. Not the P word, thankfully. But I I wanted to uh, just jump on and talk because I've really felt stirred to do this. And I don't know who's going to watch this. And I don't know if anyone's going to watch it, but I'm just here. I'm having a good time. And maybe I'll log my journey. And I am a nerd. I'm a church nerd. And I like to talk about church. And I just wanted to talk about church specifically, especially for those people who call themselves Christians but are not a part of a local church. And when I say a part of a local church, let me define that. I think you should be in church every Sunday, or every time you're gathering. As I know some people don't meet on Sunday on conventional times, but are you consistently meeting with other Christians? Are you gathering with other Christians, the same Christians, consistently? I think that's so important for your spiritual development, and you're going to be challenged. If you hang around with the world all the time, you're going to look like the world. But if you consistently get in a rhythm with other believers, other imperfect people, y'all can minister to each other, and everyone gets better. And I think a Christian without a church is an oxymoron. So if you're saying, man, I love Jesus, but I just don't know about his people, I don't know. Jesus was all about it. He's all about his bride. Now, I had a verse I wanted to share with you. This is Hebrews 10:25. Not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. It's going to be really hard to encourage people if you're not around, if you're not gathering. Don't forsake the gathering. I say all this, I'm coming off of a trip where I was traveling, and I had the option to make it easy, see family over the weekend, but I want to be at my church. I want to be with my people. I want to invest in the soil that I'm planted in. And if you're always taking trips and out, it's really hard. I know some families like to just go out for the weekend and do stuff, but there's, I think, nothing more important than being in your local church on a Sunday. And I hate missing church. I say that all the time. Hate missing church. I know you're not supposed to hate things, but I certainly do. And I think you could hate the things that God hates. I think God wants you to be around other people. It's going to help you. And there's so many people that think they're good at home, just me and God, but you're not. And there's lots of pastors that preach on this, but I'll get on the soapbox as well that when God created everything, He's creating light and earth and animals and everything we know, and He calls it good. Man, create that good. Create that good. But when He gets to us, He creates man. He actually gets way more intimate with us. He speaks everything else. But for us, He forms us from clay. And when He makes us, He's like, you know what? He breathes into us, right? He does our creation different. We're made in His image. But the one thing that is different is when He got done creating us, He didn't say good. He said, actually, it's not good for you to be alone. So He created woman, right? Woman. But I think you need to be around other believers. And it's not good to be alone. Man should not be alone. And you shouldn't forsake the gathering. And there's so much fruit that comes from being planted and around other Christians, genuinely. And like, I just make it a rule. And maybe that's what you need to do if, like, maybe you get two Sundays off a year. Like, I work with churches, so sometimes I do go to another church. And I'm talking like maybe once, maybe twice a year. I hate missing church. I want to be at my church. And yeah, so even when I'm traveling, I'm like, I gotta leave early. I gotta get the flight back. I gotta be at church, and I gotta be at my church with my people. And one other thing I would mention is, I know a lot of people that drive like an hour or really far away to go to church, and I'm not fully anti that, especially if like the closest church is an hour away. If you live in a very rural area, but the thing is, if you're driving all the way across town to be with people that you never see other than Sunday, I don't know. I think you're much better off and probably more impactful to God if you actually reach the people in your local community. So I'm big on go to church within at least 15 minutes of your house, at least 15 minutes, so that when you actually go out to the grocery store, you bump into people that you know or bump into people that could also go to your church. It's kind of hard to be helpful if you're doing life cities away. So I know doing life is one of those taboo things you probably can't say anymore. Everyone jokes about it, but that's just the churchy lingo coming out. But yeah, and like, well, y'all, you don't get it, Carson. This church down the street from me, they're like this or like that, or they don't connect well, or they're not welcoming, or their worship's not good. It's like, oh, I didn't know that church was about that. I thought it was about God and gathering. Like, you should read about the early church in Acts 2 and the few things that they actually focused on. It wasn't many things. So for you, I would say if you're frustrated, if you go to church and you're frustrated, or you don't feel welcomed and it's not home, like maybe it's you to help change that. So get involved. I actually built an app for churches called Involve that helps people get involved in church. And yeah, I just want to see more people involved in church. I'm going to have conversations like this. This is the first of many, and we'll be doing more. It's going to be a good time. I want to talk about, I'm really stirred about talking about tithing and how it's different from giving. So that's for another time. You can follow. But until next time, my milk's almost gone.